The habits we have can either make us or break us. And for many people, they are allowing their habits to do the breaking of them. So many people are being kept poor because of the habits that they choose to infuse in their everyday living. And what we're going to do is to explore what some of these habits are. Welcome back to Ira Living. On this episode, we are going to be looking at some of the common habits that are keeping people poor. We will examine 5 such habits and have an exploration of why it is that people do these things and how it is that we can refrain from practicing them. The first one is buying long-term investment for short-term gain. Now, the primary reason people do this is because they find it difficult to delay gratification. And so they want to invest in instant gratification on things way before they can even afford them. And so they invest in things that are going to be for long term, that is going to cost them long term, just so they can get the short-term gains from it. And these could be things like buying a car, buying a house, going on a holiday that they cannot yet afford. All of these things are things that they genuinely are not yet in a position to afford, and it's going to be costing them for decades in the future. However, they want to be in a position where they're experiencing that now, and therefore they go out and ensure that they are able to get those gains that on things that are going to cost them for a long time, but getting the gains on that now. One of the things that makes this even more of a possibility is the availability of credit in certain societies that makes it easy for people to be able to put themselves in these positions. And then you find that people are struggling to pay off all of the debt that they've incurred by trying to make sure that they have something in the now that is going to cost them considerably in the years to come, rather than investing in other means of affording those and gradually over time adding those to the resources that they have available at their disposal. And number 2 is to customize lifestyle luxury with liability. Many people think that, to give an impression and an appearance, they need to be able to indulge in certain things that they think is luxury, but in essence, they're simply just liability. So, for example, they look at the ability to drive an expensive car to be something that is going to be customizing their lifestyle to show luxury. But in essence, it's a liability, because we know that those things depreciate in value and they depreciate so rapidly. Or they buy accessories that they believe will add some value to them and show them out to be people who are standing out or set apart, to show as though they are living a luxurious lifestyle. Or they attend events and functions where they believe that that will help to accessorize the life that they're living, to elevate them into some level of luxury, wherein all at the same time they are simply adding on to their liability and are going to need to pay for this at some point in their future. And when they come to the realization of it, you quickly find that they become overly anxious and work up about the fact that they will now have these costs to pay off, and sometimes justify the needs for buying them in the first place. In our society, with social media influencers and the need and feel to impress other people, people are also adding a lot to their expenses by simply trying to live a life that is impressing others, and that's number 3. We need to also recognize how many of these same influencers now are coming out and saying the level of debt that they found themselves in because they were trying to live this lifestyle that they genuinely could not afford. It is better to ensure that we can afford the lifestyle we're living rather than trying to impress anybody. And at the same length and breadth, people around us don't even really care oftentimes what it is that we're doing. And majority of the time, the people who would be impressed by those things are people who are in similar predicament or worse than ourselves, because the people who have the understanding of how to utilize wealth are unlikely to want to do things to impress other people. Number 4, failing to utilize cooperative economics. Now, cooperative economics is where people come together and utilize their financial skill set to benefit each other and support one another, and being in a cooperative fashion where we help each other to realize their vision and their ambitions. Oftentimes, that's not something that poor people tend to want to do, and it only helps to keep them poorer because they don't have the amount of equity that is required to make certain investments. And if they pool together, they would be able to make much more strides, but they find it difficult to come to a common idea as to what vision and ambition that they should push forward first, and how to come to an agreement as to how to share out the funds in the future. And they don't sit down with mediators and others who can help them to come to a consensus of how to do these ventures so that they can work together and strive together and get to the dream and aspirations that they want to achieve that they would not otherwise be able to do, because it's not as possible on their own as it would be if they were to be collaborative with others. And number 5 is the lack of foresight, strategic planning. So oftentimes, people who are not looking at planning towards their future and seeing how to build out a better future for themselves will have difficulty with building their wealth. The whole concept of wealth building requires strategic planning, strategic management, and figuring out how you're going to get ahead in advance. So it's people who are planning for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years in advance are able to make the strides to get out of poverty and build wealth. And so if we are looking at doing the same, then people who are trying to shake off being poor need to practice this as one of their common habits, where they're looking at planning out their future and seeing possibilities and looking at how to work out a situation where they can identify the strengths, they can identify the weakness, the opportunities and threats, and being able to plan out ambitions and aspirations in line with things that are going to be productive for their advancement and in order to enable them to leave a generational legacy. So these are 5 common things that we've looked at that are common habits that poor people exhibit. Are there any of these that you currently exhibit that you need to tweak? If that's the case, please tell us in the comments down below. Remember, financial literacy is revolutionary. It has transformed my life, and I believe that it can do the same to yours.